Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Submission Radio Morning After Live. I'm joined by a couple of great guests. One of them is running late, but before I start this program, I just really want to send my thoughts and prayers, and also just want to mention a very special man who passed away shockingly overnight as I woke up. Ricky Hatton, here's a graphic, was an absolute legend in the boxing world, and I know that everybody that's ever watched one of his fights or got to watch it live or even got a chance to be inspired by him is really reeling this morning. I know the boxing world is reeling this morning. And even though we are coming to the MMA world right now, I'll bring in a man here who has a lot to do with the boxing world, of course, Jimmy Smith. Jimmy, welcome to the show. Brutal, man. Waking up to this news, like I was on a high after Netflix, The Big Show, and then Ricky Hatton gone, man. 46 years old.
Yeah, young, and no one ever saw him fight will ever get that song out of their head. I swear to God, there's only one Rick. I heard it so much, but he was one of those guys. Always brought it. Always a good attitude. Always a lot of fun. You really rooted for him. He was one of those guys, kind of so tied to Manchester too. Like they were so loyal to him. He was so loyal to them. His fights were such a big deal. Back when he fought Costa Zoo, back when he fought Jose Luis Castillo, when he fought Mayweather, it was just huge, you know, the Pacquiao fight, stuff like that. And so he was just a hard-working guy. Wasn't the most talented guy on earth. He wasn't Nassim Hamed. He wasn't that quick. He wasn't super duper fast. He worked really hard, really scrappy, really tough, really strong, and he had a ton of fan support. So losing a guy like that is so tough because he was so beloved everywhere he went. And it was, really sad, man. Really sad. And we don't know what happened to him, but man, so young. It's awful. But great fighter, man. Great legacy.
Do you have a favorite fight of his? I know you mentioned the Costa Zoo fight.
Costa Zoo, probably my favorite fight, which is his coming out party. And you know, as an Aussie, I know that one probably hurts a little bit, but Costa Zoo, an incredible fighter. And Costa Zoo was supposed to go through Ricky. People forget that. He was supposed to go through Hatton, and Hatton just went to war with him and ended up winning a very, very tough fight. And the one thing I remember about the Mayweather fight is Mayweather had to kind of pull out his bag of tricks in that fight. It wasn't, Hatton was so strong. He kept it so close. And, he was one of the only guys to kind of frustrate Mayweather a little bit. Mayweather had to go, okay, and pull out his bag of tricks. He couldn't coast against Ricky Hatton. And, the beautiful check left hook knocked him out. Great stuff. But this idea that even Mayweather had to go to his next level, which he hardly ever had to do. And he'll be missed, man, for sure. For sure.
Dude, it was insane to wake up to that. So, my thoughts go out to his family. But speaking of greatness, though, in boxing, and by the way, for everybody out there watching, Jed will join us in a couple of minutes. But everybody, the boxing this past weekend, Netflix, Canelo, Crawford, Jimmy doing an 8-hour watch-along, but doing a great job of it.
8.5 hours. I was done at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, my God. And you're joining me here today. Yeah. And 70,000 people, Allegiant Stadium. It just felt like something special. And, of course, Zuffa Boxing, this was their first event. Before we even get to the fight, Jimmy, what did you make of the pacing, the production, the way the show looked, felt? I guess a lot of people just kind of wondered, all right, Zuffa's going to have a crack at this. Are they going to improve it? Is it going to be the same? What was your takeaway from this whole thing?
It looked good. From a production standpoint, one of the things that Dana White had been critical of about boxing in previous years, Showtime, was, do we need 4 national anthems? The pageantry of boxing is very, very slow. As an MMA fan, you're used to 5 fights in a 3-hour broadcast. It can take maybe 2.5, whatever. By the way, set your watch by it in the UFC. 15 minutes in, first fighters are in. Set your watch by it. I swear, UFC comes on. I had to go do whatever I need to do because the broadcast doesn't mean anything to me. 15 minutes, there are 2 fighters in the ring or walking in the octagon, whatever. It was 34 minutes before we had, I think, the walks for the first, I don't want to say televised, first Netflix fight. 34 minutes. There were, I think, 40 minutes between the co-main and the main. It was not paced well. And then we had 2 mariachis, and it was everything Dana White had previously complained about with the pacing of boxing. I thought, as a TKO production, Dana White in charge of it, it would be paced more like a UFC, and it wasn't. It was okay, and then the desk and this and that. And from a broadcasting perspective, and you're a broadcaster and you know this, whenever it's okay, we have a half hour to kill. go to the desk and talk to Mark Wahlberg, and you go, oh my God. As a broadcaster, it's the absolute worst. I thought there'd be less of that, and there wasn't. It was it was paced really slowly. Visually, did it look good? Yeah. It was weird. The one thing I noticed and this is really ticky-tack, but it was the Callum Walsh fight. There was a knockdown against Vargas. There was a slip, right? The referee goes slip. They didn't replay it. We literally never saw a replay. And I'm like, well,
so strange. Yeah.
Why was it, like, I thought it was a slip. I thought the feet got tangled, but that's something you always replay. And they never replayed it. And as obviously a boxing broadcaster, I was like, you always replay a slip or a knockdown. So to explain to the fans why it's not a knockdown. And they never did that. So there were Anik is very, very good. He's a fantastic broadcaster. It was the pacing was a very, very even slow for boxing, which does take a lot of pageantry in between fights. I thought there was a lot of it. Now I was working, so I don't know how your average fan felt about it, right? Like I have to sit there and watch the whole thing. I have a choice, but did fan like it's 1 a.m. and my broadcast partner for broadcast partners, I had Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, and Bob Santos, who's an incredible boxing coach. Paulie goes, dude, I'd go to sleep at this point. It's 1:30. We've been waiting here 20 minutes. It's another 20. You know what? I literally go to sleep and check it out in the morning. I don't know how many people would do that because I was working. Like, you can't not. So I don't really know, but I didn't think the pacing was good. I thought visually it was good. I thought the commentary was good. You know what I mean? But the pacing was, I thought Dana would clean that up a little bit, and he didn't.
It's just funny because I'm bringing in this man, speaking of pacing, Jed Meshew in the house. Jed, a lot was said, obviously, about the pacing. We just saw Jimmy sort of break it all down. What did you make of Max Kellerman, man? Some interesting stuff. Like, you can't deny the fact that the guy's, he's got the voice, he's got the skills, he's a great broadcaster. But some of the shilling for the UFC and like some of the stuff that was happening, it always got to an uncomfortable point. I mean, we saw going into the fight, Canelo basically had to cut him off about how boxing, blah, 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 don't speak crap about boxing. I thought that was getting a bit crazy, the whole Dana White stuff. But I don't know, even through the broadcast here and there, like, how did you feel about Max Kellerman's return?
Are you muted?
Can I hear you? Yeah, I was. Yeah. I muted myself so when I came in. Sorry. I think Max Kellerman's a really good broadcaster. I think he has that check cleared, and he is going all in. The happiness he gets from his bank account means he is hurting his broadcasting abilities at times. I mean, let's just be honest. The presser stuff was super weird. It wasn't like it wasn't kind of uncomfortable. It was super uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable.
Like, especially just the way it came out of nowhere. He was not involved in that presser functionally until he jumped in at the end to be like, and we should all praise Turkey. Had he never been born, we wouldn't be here. Which is like, that's laying it on thick if you're talking about your own mother, much less like a dude that has nothing, like
Bob Arum, who's been in it for 70 years. That'd be thick. You'd go, yeah, okay, I like Bob Arum too, and but
yeah, none of us would be here. But and Dana's going to say, and then like chiding the crowd for booing his like blatant shilling was terrible. Once he got on the broadcast, it was much better because he is a good boxing analyst, right? Like, he calls fights mostly well. He has the same sort of issues that everybody has. Sometimes you get a little too locked into a narrative. You can't see the forest for the trees. But then it cropped up again for me at the end for the in-ring interviews. And like, this is where I'd be more willing to give him a pass on this, but for his behavior during the rest of fight week, because you can't really like it to with a straight face go up to Canelo and be like, everybody knows you've only challenged yourself to the most difficult fights possible, as if Canelo didn't fight a dude 3 weight classes smaller than himself and not fight Dave Benavidez. Like this
or David Morrell. Yeah.
This was 100%. Him not challenging himself, and he got burnt on it. And, Max is just like laying it on so thick, and I don't know why. Like, tongue in cheekly, it's because he's getting paid or whatever, but he didn't have to be this sort of grotesque with it. And it detracts for me. But this is also one of those things. I don't know if anybody else cares. This is just something I care about because I watch I'm so invested. And if like casual fans are just like, okay, well, they don't know that Canelo has been functionally ducking like the real people he should have been fighting for the last few years. So they just take it on face value and are like, oh, cool. Yep. Good work, Max. I don't know. I thought he overall brought down my enjoyment of fight week, but he gave us something to talk about.
Jimmy, I mean,
yeah,
it's a weird one. Like you've been in big positions. You've been in the WWE, Bellator, UFC, and you've been in positions where obviously you have bosses. You want everyone to be happy, but I just don't know how like a broadcaster like Kellerman could be so numb to what he was doing and just like, there's a way to, if he wants to do it in a tasteful way, I get it. But it was just,
I want to say this
weird.
100%, having worked for every major promotion on earth.
Yeah. You worked for Vince McMahon. I mean,
I worked for Vince McMahon outside of WWE, which is scripted. It's not real. Sorry to break anybody's heart, but any combat sport, I've never had somebody go, be sure to lay it on thick for so-and-so. Dana has never pulled me aside and go, we're all in on this welterweight. Make sure you back this guy 100%. I've never had that happen, ever. So the idea that he had to do, unless something's radically changed, he was treated very different than I've been treated in the past, 20 years I've been in this business. I have never had a promoter go, destroy your own credibility in order to push this narrative. Here's your script. I've never had that. So we might feel as broadcasters that they want us to say something. All right. We need to push this narrative. But no one ever says you have to do this. You have to say this. You want your check to clear, you say this. I've never had that happen, ever. So unless, Max is the exception to the rule and Dana said, you're going to lay it on super thick or else, which he never said to me, he decided to do that. And that's on him. But this idea too, that as a broadcaster, one thing you have to remember is your credibility is yours. And that lasts a lot longer than any gig you're going to have anywhere. So one of the things too is that, if I'm doing a show and I'm doing a Bellator and they say, call so-and-so the best lightweight in the world, I'll go, no, he's not. Unless I think they are, right? No, because that's my credibility and that follows me way beyond this gig. I'm still working in broadcasting and Bellator doesn't exist anymore. So the idea that Max Kellerman's credibility is way more important to him, or it should be more important to him than anything, any one gig or any one check or anything. You work for the promotion. That's true. But a good promotion, which I have worked for, thankfully, my entire career, you don't have to shill, right? I really think Patricio Pitbull is one of the best in his prime, one of the best 145 pounders in the world. So in saying that, I didn't have to reach. I think he's in his prime, he's a little older now. Absolutely incredible. I didn't have to make up anything. So there are so many positives too to Canelo and Crawford and the fights that were put on. You don't have to lay it on thick. You can just tell the truth about what's going on and you're going to be fine. So yeah, it was weird to me. And the only way I describe it is the press conference was cringy. When the fighter themselves go, dude, cut it out. You've really stepped in it. And also when you're asking questions at the end of the fighter, by the way, broadcasting tip, have questions ready when you get in there. His pauses were like, and I'm going, say the words.
I thought it was over for a second.
I was like, did he blank out? You know what I mean? They're only
weird.
All right, here, broadcasting tip. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Emotions about the fight. How are you feeling right now? Tactics, right? Which is, man, he was using the left hand a lot. Did that surprise you? Third is the future. Ta-da. You ask 3 questions. That's the basic rundown. And he was kind of going, yeah, to where you're going, okay, Max. Like there were just awkward moments with the whole with that side of the broadcast. It was weird.
Oh man, speaking of awkward moments, Jed, what was going on in Dana White's head during this moment? Him watching the boxing.
He
What
looked
was
stone
happening there?
miserable. He looked miserable the whole evening, and I don't know why. Like this was what he wanted. Like to Jimmy's point, I don't know what yesterday was. I know what Terence Crawford's win over Canelo was. I know what that is. Every other part of this week, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why, well, I guess maybe I do, but it's cynical. Like, why Max Kellerman is like, boxing is dying, but also this is the biggest event of the year. We're going to save boxing, blah, blah, like talking out of both sides of his mouth. I don't understand why Dana's like, I'm going to save boxing. And he just delivered like a much worse boxing card than normal that he obviously wasn't enjoying at either. Like he didn't seem that his boy, Callum Walsh, he couldn't even pretend to care about the Callum Walsh fight in the co-main. Like the group of Dana, Turkey, Jason Statham, Mr. Beast, and Mark Wahlberg all in a row. What are they talking about other than being real rich?
Looked out of it, man, with his glasses on.
Just like what is that conversation other than like, I got a lot of money, so do you? Yeah, it's pretty neat.
How's your Audi? Pretty sweet. How's yours? I like it.
It's
you like
pretty
the new
great
Bugatti?
stuff.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Oh, like I don't.
Yeah, no,
the whole thing felt so weird, and that like for this to be the big debut and it'd be so kind of empty and feel like a bad UFC broadcast. Like it, I don't know. I don't have any idea why Dana was as bummed as he looked, because like this is ostensibly where he's supposed to have been having fun. Like the whole line for all of us is Dana doesn't really care about MMA anymore. He's somewhere between bored and mad every time he's doing MMA stuff. But now like he's put his energy into Power Slap and into Zuffa boxing. Then he just looked mad sitting next to Turkey. So like I don't know what the hell's going on, but it was real weird.
Jimmy, look at this photo right here. Doesn't this look like a man who's look at the boys just having a good time.
I can only
look at their faces, man. Look at their faces.
Turkey
God.
might be asleep in that photo.
Callum fight. That if you said when was that photo taken, I would say
it has to be right
middle of the Callum fight when it's like okay,
looks like a funeral. Looks like they're at a funeral.
Like a funeral. And when I was watching the Callum fight, by the way, Lester Martinez, Christian Mbili, hats off to them.
Great fight.
That was a phenomenal fight, man.
That clearly should have been the co-main event
because we'll probably see it again. I was like, great draw, great. They'll do it again. And then Callum gets up there, and the crowd was silent. He didn't step on the gas and go, okay, I'm getting this guy out of here. It looked like a sparring session. They were kind of your turn, my turn. You hit, I hit, you hit, I hit, you hit. And Callum Walsh was better, a level better than Fernando Vargas Jr. So it was one of those where like, this is your guy? Like it was one of those, and I'm not necessarily blaming Dana for the matchup. On paper, it should have been fun, or it should have done good things, but that had to be taken in the middle of the Callum fight, because that was the time I went, man, okay, this is right before the main event too, so it kind of sucked the oxygen out of the room, as we should be. If they should have flip-flopped Lester Martinez, 100%. That would have ramped us right into the main event, and I thought the card placement on that wasn't very good.
Yeah, God, man. Hilarious stuff. Let's talk about the main event, though, because we saw something special. Crawford was able to go out there and defy all odds and cement his legacy. I mean, we'll talk about where it puts him in a second. But, Jimmy, you watched it live with the boys, and so did you, Jed, with Mike Heck on MMA Fighting. I want to go to you first, though, Jimmy. What did we witness Crawford do yesterday in Allegiant Stadium?
It reminded me of like a vintage Anderson Silva of like Reed, get you. I got that body shot, jab, hook, counter. It was that ability to just dissect somebody strategically with all of his gifts. I loved it, especially later in the fight. He stood his ground, and Canelo, the bigger man, the stronger man, really couldn't find a way in, really couldn't find a way to hurt him, was surprised at the punches he was taking. This was not a hit and run, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, where he just used his speed and kind of stole rounds. Like he stood his ground against a bigger guy and went, I dare you to find a way in here without getting smacked. And I thought it was complete control. I thought it was complete dominance. I thought his punching power was underrated. I thought his size was underrated. He looked big in there. The question with the size was, how will he handle the fight late? He's carrying around some extra weight. Handled it great. turned it up in the final round. I mean, it was just a master's class in how you take apart a bigger, stronger, usually more aggressive opponent. So I thought it was an absolute master's class in kind of how you win a fight like that. It was great stuff all the way through for Crawford. That was amazing.
Jed, what do you think Canelo? What did you think of the version of Canelo we saw there? He looked frustrated. He looked like he was surprised, sort of unprepared for some of the stuff Crawford was throwing at him. It looked like a lot of his strategies had to sort of get thrown out the window as they were falling apart round by round. And me and Jimmy were talking about this before you jumped on, when he got hit with a punch and he just kind of like had a go at himself in the middle of the ring because he got hit by that punch. What did you make of the Canelo we saw in there, Jed?
I mean, I mostly am going to give Crawford the credit for making him frustrated. I think that is the baseline. If you will never know the truth of this, but you could convince me, like I am open to the idea that Canelo took this lighter than he should have, just because this was, he was getting paid an enormous sum of money and this fight is functionally meaningless for him, right? Like it's a big fight, and the loss maybe dings his legacy a little bit short term, but long term it'll be fine. And he had just been so disinterested in this fight for so long that you could convince me that he just finally said yes because it was $100 million. And I'll say yes to just about anything. I will make Max Kellerman look like the world's harshest critic of Turkey and Dana White. If you're going to pay me $100 million, I'll do a whole lot of shit that I might be uninterested in doing. And so you could convince me that part of that is true here, but we'll never know the truth of it. And so we have to assume that the reason he was frustrated is because Terence Crawford is the best boxer of this generation and one of the best boxers that has ever competed in the sport. It's hard to do a GOAT conversation in boxing, honestly, just because it's been around for 200 years. And it's just really hard when there are that many people.
Guys used to fight twice a week.
Yeah. It's your flavor. Yeah. And some of the all-time most accomplished people we actually never seen box, or it's hard to ever make those claims in boxing in the same way that people love to rush to that claim in MMA. But Terence Crawford is the best boxer I've ever witnessed live, right? The best boxer I have watched compete at the time they were competing. I think he is clearly the best boxer of this generation. That is not a slight to Alexander Usyk, who I think is the greatest cruiserweight ever and an unbelievable fighter, one of the 15 or 20 best heavyweights ever. It is purely Terence Crawford is the first dude to be an undisputed champion in 3 weight classes. And it wasn't 1, 2, 3. It was 1, 2, skip a few. And there's the third, beating, a top 10 pound for pound fighter in Canelo. What he accomplished Saturday was absolutely unbelievable. And we had some talk on the MMA Fighting Slack trying to put it into layman's terms or comp terms for MMA. And the thing I settled on, and I think the closest one I could find, is back in 2001, early 2022, Alexander Volkanovski, before he moves up to lightweight, instead of moving up to challenge Islam, just was actually, F it, I'll go fight Kamaru Usman, and then takes the strap off Kamaru Usman. People would never stop talking about that in MMA if that should happen. And that's the closest analog I can think for here. Unbelievable talent and privilege to watch him work.
Well, yeah, another thing that people aren't talking about, pardon me for a second, is, as we just discussed, Canelo, since losing to Dimitri Bivol, fought an over-the-hill Gennady Golovkin, John Ryder, Jamel Charlo, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, William School. None of those guys would have gotten him ready for Terence Crawford. We talked a little about kind of the soft schedule that he's had for the last few fights.
Yeah.
That catches up with you. He hadn't seen looks like that. He hadn't had to dig deep in any of those fights. He hadn't had to come from behind any of those fights. He hadn't been frustrated.
Not a lot of movers in that group.
Not either. A lot of movers. Not a lot of slicksters, right? Yeah. Skull ran, basically, if you want to call that movement. But this idea that you never want the first time you see something to be in the ring of the cage. You don't want to be like, oh, man, I haven't seen this in a while, right? That you don't want that feeling. You want to, man, this previous guy that I fought had good wrestling. This guy's good wrestling. I'll be all right. He had never, the schedule he had been on since the Bivol fight hadn't prepared him for this kind of guy. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Also important to say that no one really talks about this, but Terence Crawford is actually older than Canelo. And I know people are saying, well, Canelo fought from, a really young age, blah, 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 through the thing, which he did. But also Crawford did the same as well. Crawford's had a long career too. So pretty incredible.
Amateur too.
You would think he was like, the way that he performed, you would think he's like 10 years younger. And like, you know what I mean? Like age is a real thing. And Crawford defied that as well. Just quickly, Jimmy, what did you make of Crawford coming out to the Ilia Topuria entrance music? Yeah. He had the guitar. He got asked at the post-fight press conference. Gave a little answer. Oh, really? He's playing it coy. Yeah. But he did it.
Yeah. Oh, there's always going to be that especially with when the UFC, when they did their package of Mexican fighters, they rolled Cain Velasquez, they rolled in a bunch of MMA fighters that people could see on the screen, stuff like that. Yeah, a little back and forth. I don't think it's a bad thing as long as they don't beat us to death with the crossover of MMA and boxing, because one of the things I noticed working for WWE when I was in Vegas for International Fight Week, I was calling Money in the Bank, and it was International Fight Week. Israel Adesanya was fighting, and fans would come up to me of MMA and go, "Hey, are you here for the UFC?" I said, "No, I'm calling Money in the Bank." And they go, "Huh?" And I go, "Yeah, I work for the WWE. I'm doing, I'd been doing Monday Night Raw for like a year at that point." And to them, I disappeared. They had no idea where I was, what I was doing, what was going on. So you never want to assume. And a similar thing when DC went and did refereed for a cage match between Seth Rollins and Riddle, and DC when I was on the screen, the crowd didn't make a noise. He didn't get a pop at all. And the crossover's not that strong. You just, you can overplay the crossover. Some MMA fans don't watch boxing. Some boxing fans don't watch MMA. They won't get references that include the other side a lot of times. I mean, we're all fight dorks, but not everyone is.
Dude, it's not everyone. It's most. Yeah. The fan bases have very little overlap.
Very separate.
That, like, I think people just do not understand that enough. Like, very little overlap. There's some, but like just there's far more overlap between pro wrestling and MMA fan bases than there are MMA and boxing fan bases. So
we know what Ilia Topuria is doing. He's taking a page out of the Conor McGregor playbook. There's probably a good $100 million there for him in this potential boxing match with Crawford, which nobody will really think he has a chance of winning unless you're an MMA fan. Because I got comments from all sorts of, but I got comments from all sorts of MMA fans, and they think he can do it.
People are idiots.
Just to bring people down to earth, what does a boxing match look like between Ilia Topuria and Terence Crawford?
It goes unbelievably poorly for Ilia Topuria. Don't be fucking stupid. I just don't follow the money. For all things in life, just follow the money. And here's how I know that Ilia Topuria wouldn't beat Terence Crawford in boxing, because he'd be a professional boxer. That's what would be happening. He would be a pro boxer because he'd be making more money as a pro boxer. And that's not what he's doing. I hate it. Like I every single thing Ilia Topuria does just makes me hate him, other than fight. When he fights, he is pure magic, and everything he does outside of the cage is a distilled version of make me hate you. And I wish he would just stop, because it's awful. Like the whole thing, I want to be so unbelievably clear about this, because the timeline, here's like maybe bothers me the most. The timeline is Bud was asked who's the best boxer in the UFC, and he shouts out his friend, Cody Garbrandt. Is that wrong? Yes. Definitely not the best boxer in MMA. Maybe at one point in time, but not realistically. But he's shouting out his buddy. He didn't say, fuck Ilia Topuria, he sucks dick. Cody Garbrandt got them hands. He was like, I think it's my guy, Cody. Ilia gets in his feels and is like, I will knock him out in round one in boxing. But he does that chody MMA fan thing where he's like, not to mention that if we were in a real fight, I'd actually dummy him. It's like, actually, no, because a real fight doesn't have a fucking cage or rules. It would be 50 of Terence Crawford's buddies versus you. And I don't know, like, this is dumb as shit. You're just drawing arbitrary lines. And then he gets like in his feels when Terence is like, that dude's drunk, because it felt like a drunk comment to be like, I'd knock him out in the first round. Nobody has ever done that, but some random dude we're going to be doing the Robin Black MMA angle shit again. It's ridiculous.
Jimmy, just for people that don't understand the difference in levels and stuff, what does that fight, what was that boxing match look like? And who has a better chance of winning, Ilia Topuria against Terence Crawford or Conor McGregor back in the day against Floyd Mayweather?
The only thing I would say about Floyd Mayweather is Floyd had some time off. Floyd, if people remember, had semi-retired. It was a year after that. Conor was big for the weight class.
Conor was at least bigger.
He's bigger, right? And Floyd was the kind of guy that would start slowly. He didn't want to even take a big hit. And
you get 6 rounds against him. He's more evasive.
Man, Floyd's a businessman. Floyd was like
WWE. He's been in the WWE for a while at that point. Floyd, he'd done big matches like the Big Show. He knew how to carry 100%. Guys. Kinda,
Crawford, I've spoken to people who know him, dude. He's competitive at everything he does. He hates losing. He would hate giving 10 seconds to somebody he felt didn't belong in there with him. And I think there would be an edge. Mayweather went, this is a fun little tour. I'll make a lot of money beating up this Irish dude, but I'll give his fans 3 rounds to, because he's a slow starter anyway. Crawford would be like, you don't belong in here with me. How dare you? And it would go however Terence Crawford wanted it to go. And I'm not surprised he was like, no, I'll keep you in here for 4 rounds just to bust you up and make you go, all body shots. I'm just going to make you quit because I don't like you. That would be Terence Crawford. And that's not an insult, guys. There are levels to this. And this is all Terence Crawford does. Very, very simple.
But we got to be real. We know Terence Crawford's like, I might get like $100 million to fight some guy that I could easily beat. And Ilia Topuria is like, I don't have to fight like Arman Sarukian. I can fight for like quadruple the money and lose and no one will care because it's not really a sport that I'm supposed to win in anyway. And the UFC are like, we got Zuffa boxing. How do we get, you know what I mean? Like it's all signs.
They're never going to do it.
There's money there. All right, just quickly go.
That's the thing though. I actually don't think there's money there. Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather were the 2 biggest like combat sports athletes on the planet. There was clear money there. God love Terence Crawford, best fighter I've ever seen. Never been a huge draw in general. Maybe this win over Canelo gets him there, like, because that is traditionally how star, passes hand to hand or whatever. But like, we won't know that. And Ilia Topuria, we all think he should be the biggest star in MMA, and certainly in Spain and globally, he is getting there. But like, I do not believe Ilia Topuria could sell 500,000 pay-per-views. Like that's not how the UFC builds people at this stage. So there's just like, there is not substantively more money for a bozo nonsense boxing fight between the 2 of them than there is between Crawford taking on, I don't know. I'm not trying to think even who he fights next, and certainly not just running it back with Canelo. That's where the money is. You run it back with Canelo.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know if those guys are going to run it back. Anyway, I guess we'll see what happens. But interesting times over there at Allegiant. Other interesting times are in San Antonio, where Jean Silva epically fumbled the bag against Diego Lopez and went into business for himself, but not really, because he lost the fight. He came out and had a bit of a rough start against Diego Lopez. For those that caught the fight, eventually was able to get some ground back and then went into a weird game plan where he left himself open and eventually got caught. Of course, Diego Lopez now beating him with a spinning elbow, TKO, KO. But Jimmy, Fighting Nerds, now going against another loss. And this one, I spoke to the head coach, of course, Pablo, who's a fantastic coach. But this one doesn't look great because Silva had all the tools here to beat Lopez, but fumbled this one in so many ways.
Have the tools and not use them properly, it doesn't really make any difference. Got himself in bad position in round number 1. Lopez almost seemed to go, dude, I'm in full mount right now.
Yeah, like, he couldn't believe he was there.
Yeah, it was almost like, this is how easy this is going to go. Took his back, no problem. Mounted, no problem. Beating the crap out of him, no problem. And then the comeback in round number 2, and this happens a lot. By the way, if you've ever coached anybody after a 10-8 round, one guy a lot of times takes his foot off the gas in round 2, and that's what happened with Lopez. And Silva starts coming back, but he's winging punches from his nipples just flinging him. And after watching Terence Crawford actually box with incredible precision, this was the anti that. Silva was just flinging, landing some strikes, but recklessly, wide open. And you could almost heard a timer in my head going, dude, you're going to get cracked throwing like this. And bang, spinning elbow, sliced him up all over him, finish. There we go. That kind of performance was the worst first round you could have. And in round number 2, even when he had the comeback, maybe he had round number 2, he kept taking the same physical risks, and you have to tone that down against elite guys, and he just didn't. He made the wrong steps. And so all the physical attributes and all the technical skills in the world aren't going to help you in a situation like that. And I feel like that's what he did. And it was a weird lead up, a weird fight week. He seemed really emotional about the whole thing, and that's the wrong way to fight a 5-round main event.
Yeah, it's hard to be a main event fighter in the UFC, Jed. You've got to go through all sorts of stuff, build-ups, videos, you got to sign a billion things. This wasn't even a pay-per-view. But yeah, for Silva, this is a lot of firsts. You were big on him, obviously, and I'm sure you still are. But what was your reaction when you saw the way that this fight played out? He might have gotten his name confused and thought he was Anderson, not Jean, the way that he performed in that second round.
No, I still pick Jean Silva because I've been high on him for a very long time. This was coming. The bill was due. He is a psychopath, and that's a problem. You can't be a total moron. It's just not really sustainable. And he got away because this is not the first time he's done stupid stuff. His UFC career has functionally been a collection of these, and he wins anyway. Right? He mugs, he dicks around. He's not that serious. He tries to slap hands and hug people 6 times in the middle of a round. He does not take fighting seriously, and fighting is a serious business. So this was always going to happen eventually. Surprised it took this long, but not surprised it came against a guy like Diego Lopez, who, honest to God, yeah, credit on Diego Lopez for getting that W. Most other featherweights probably just fall under that Tasmanian devil whirling dervish of psycho shit, because he was dinging the hell out of Diego Lopez in the second round. Diego Lopez is just unbelievably durable. And so instead of it, honestly, you can watch that fight and see that Jean Silva is throwing everything at him. He has too many tools in the bag that he is using. And instead of being oh, none of these are really getting it done, he was just I'll go even further into the land of crazy, as opposed to being maybe I need to withdraw and settle into just beating this guy's ass methodically. No, I'll go further afield. And then it went bad for him. My hope is that this is the lesson he needed, that at some point the lesson had to be taught, because, you're a young guy with all the talent in the world. Why would you listen to people? Why? I'm doing me and it's working. Why would I change? This can be the Justin Gaethje shit. I finally found a dude I can't just go to war with and beat the hell out of and kind of survive over in car crashes. And then he figures out how to actually fight and becomes one of the very best fighters in the world. I'm hopeful that will be it for Jean Silva, that the fighting nerds will go back and he'll be okay, I guess I can't be a total weirdo. I hope he still has some of that, because God, it would be a shame if he went full Michelle Pajeda and stopped being fun at all. Find a happier medium. But my hope is that this will be a good learning lesson for him. And it's one that's overdue, because you can't fight like that. Fighting is serious. You cannot be total nonsense all the time.
It's going to be a interesting time at the gym when Rufy and Kaio and Silva and a lot of these guys get back in there. But just quickly, Jimmy, who had the more impressive spinning back elbow KO here? Would you say Murphy over someone like Pico? That was pretty brutal. Or would you say Lopez, who kind of really braved the elements and then took out Jean Silva, someone who people thought could be fighting for the belt next?
For me, the Pico knockout was perfect. It cracked. He was out before he hit the ground. If you look at the Lopez one, it basically skimmed him, cut him, disoriented him. He fell down. It was really the ground and pound at the end. That was one of those where I thought maybe he hangs on. I thought the cut would stop it anyway. As soon as he's leaking like that, I went, they're going to stop this anyway. I thought he maybe could have made it to the end of the round. Yeah, and I agree with the comment that just popped up. That Lerone Murphy was perfect. Bang, eyes wide shut, looking at the lights. That was beautiful. I thought Lopez did brave maybe some more offense, although Aaron Pico was coming in trying to land big shots. That's usually where a spinning elbow comes from anyway. The idea that Lerone Murphy just had the perfect one timing wise, he gets it to me for sure. Even though I liked Lopez's, that was fun.
And a shout out to Kristen Jeffrey for joining up as a member. You guys can sign up right now. Jed, there's going to be a lot of rough comments for the fighting nerds, but if you're an elite team at MMA, eventually you have to lose. It's just the way the sport is. Unfortunately, these guys have had a rough few weeks. What is your thoughts on the team? Is it just business as usual? This is just a part of it, or are we seeing a bit of a pattern here up the top of the divisions?
A little bit of both. I do think this is part of it. Most fight camps don't. I think think of Alpha Male, right? Like Team Alpha Male has been a fight camp forever. They consistently put out high level fighters. And for most of their history, it was like, wow, they just can't win the title. They can't beat Dominic Cruz or whatever. And then they finally break through. It is rare that you get a gym sort of pop up like this and just take over. It happens, but city kickboxing is not the norm. They happen to have two of the greatest, 20 best fighters of all time compete, and Fighting Nerds is not that. Talking to them a little bit about sort of their process, I really like their camp in general, sort of how they approach the sport. I think that they will be fine, but I also think that there is some truth to they might need to reevaluate, because you hearing post-fight comments from the nerds of this little run. Basically, they're all like, we had a game plan and we didn't do that game plan. And that's bad, right? Because they are a very analytical team, right? They do statistical probability charts and shit about what are the most likely outcomes, what are the weapons that opponents like to use the most at what stages of fights. And so they have all this pretty advanced analytical approach to the fight, and then just be like, nah, fuck it, we'll just vibe out there. That is probably not conducive to long-term success. So hopefully they'll just go back to the drawing board and be like, oh, we need to actually learn how to we've got the make game plans down. Now we need to implement game plans moving forward. So, but I think they'll be fine. These dudes are all still really good at fighting.
And I was going to say, of course, the ground stuff that we saw from Lopez on Silva and then Rufy, you would think that you would go back and tighten up a few of the holes that the guys had. I was also going to bring up another man in Kelvin Gastelum, Jimmy, who missed weight by a crazy amount. The fight continued, but he lost 30% of his purse. So likely not really making any money on this fight. He was able to pick up a win here yesterday in San Antonio. But my question to you is, what are we doing with Kelvin Gastelum now?
I have no idea, and I've never known.
Do we put him up to heavyweight? What are we doing?
I don't know. Well, here's the thing that a great MMA coach told me one time. He said, some guys need to be the bigger guy. It doesn't matter what weight class you put him in. They always want to be the bigger guy. And so they take risks with their weight cut that other guys don't take. It's not a weight class thing, right? You can have a guy who can, misses weight at 170, go to 185, which Kelvin Gastelum did, and he couldn't make weight at 185. And you go, well, Jesus, 15 extra pounds and you can't make it? Then it's not the pounds. It's two things generally. Number one is you always psychologically need to be the bigger guy. And so you'll just cut it too close every time because you want to be bigger than you should be. The second thing is he's just not from what I can see, the guys who don't make weight typically have trouble with discipline. And yes, he won, but when you think about a guy who was always around the top and never really got there, was never really the guy in any weight class, and you think of the weight misses and the stumbles and the weight changes and all of these things, you go, it really killed his career. If you're old enough, When you're my age, if you're old enough to remember Riddick Bowe, who derailed his career at heavyweight because he just wasn't disciplined and kept yo-yoing up and down in weight, and it eroded his skills until he was a shell of his former self. With Kelvin Gastelum, it's God, how good could you have been if you weren't constantly battling the scale? How good could you have been if you weren't constantly, God, right there, but the weight stops you? I was there when he beat Jacare in Brazil in a very close fight. And the technique, and remember his war with Israel Adesanya. I mean, he was right there. And if a couple things had gone his way, we'd be talking about a really great middleweight, and we're not. So whatever he does now, I mean, I don't really, he's past his prime grade. He can beat certain guys. He's not what he used to be. But when you look at the lost potential of this guy, to me, it's incredible. It's one of the biggest in the sport. Where you go, man, if you had managed a couple things better, you could have been it. And it's like if I could take you and give you Frankie Edgar's work ethic, you would have been a great 185-pounder, 170-pounder, but you don't have that. So BJ Penn had Rich Franklin's work ethic, greatest of all time. I don't think it even comes close, but you don't. And that's, to me, Kelvin Gastelum, to me, is that kind of story.
Yeah, Jetty won the Ultimate Fighter at 19. He got into the system really young. He's been in the spotlight for a long time. Of course, UFC 236 he's in the Hall of Fame for, but that seems like a lifetime ago now for Kelvin Gastelum, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always felt weird about Kelvin just because, he hasn't won in a meaningful win. He's won some fights, but like a meaningful win in forever. And everything about him is just so. I don't think about him or take him seriously because he doesn't take himself seriously. And that's just it. Like, if he took himself and his career seriously, we wouldn't be having these conversations, but he doesn't. And that's why he blew weight by 5 pounds at freaking middleweight, right? Like, I think pretty clearly to me, he should have been a career 170 pounder. He's not the biggest dude that ever fought at welterweight. Plenty of bigger dudes make that cut. He could have made that cut, but I'm at least open to hey man, I don't want to. It is very physically taxing for me. I don't cut weight as well as other people, et cetera, et cetera. I should just be okay, fine. But then you blow weight at middleweight. That's just a discipline. That's a you not giving a shit problem. Especially go look at the weigh-ins. That is not a dude who killed himself to make 191 pounds. That is a dude who was like, I don't think I'm going to make 186. I will happily give Dustin Stolfitz 30% of however much money I'm making. Which is just good on you, because that's a sizable amount of money. I imagine whatever Kelvin's making is in the several hundreds of thousands of dollars for him to just give up 35%. But that was, he got up there on the scales and he power posed. He didn't sheepishly look, he didn't look like a man who was near death and really could make it. It was like, yeah, he looked like a dude who's pretty happy. It was like, I'm done cutting. I don't want to do this anymore because he doesn't take himself seriously. So why should we?
Jimmy, there's nothing worse than fighting the missing weight. Like you can do PEDs, you can beat your wife, you can run over people with a car, but you do not miss weight. That's a cardinal sin. And this
the
is
way
the
I describe it to people who have regular jobs. The way I describe it to people who have regular jobs is if you're an hour late to work, nothing you do that day fucking matters. Your boss is not, but you did well the time you were here. If you're an hour late, right? If you're an hour late for work, that work day is just you're trying to make up for the fact that the next day, if you're early, the next day you're early, okay, it can be forgiven. But that day is shot. Because what are we saying? Kelvin Gastelum won at UFC Noche. What are we talking about? Missed weight. He's lazy. That fight, I don't remember who the fuck he fought. I swear to God, it doesn't matter to me. As you were saying, dude, when was the last time you beat anybody of substance? It's been a long time. You beat some dude and you missed weight by 5 pounds. You were an hour late for work, but I did this at work. You were an hour late. That's what everybody thinks about. That's what matters. And it's the first part of professionalism is be on effing time. I get asked all the time by people who want to work in my job or I want to do broadcasting for a living. And they go, man, how do you do it? Do you have any advice for me? I'm trying to get into broadcasting. I said, be fucking reliable. And they look at me and they go, that's, of course. No, it's not, of course. Plenty of guys aren't reliable. That's why I don't do this job. We had a guy a little while back trying to do color commentary for the first time. He showed up at the arena 15 minutes after the fight started and tried to get in. And our boss went, go home. We don't need you. You're done. And guess how much that guy's going to work in broadcasting? 0. He will never work in broadcasting. Be reliable. Do your prep. Have your notes. Show up on time. Be dressed. If you don't master those things, nothing else you do matters. You may have the voice of a freaking angel. It doesn't matter. And making weight is being on time and being prepared. Nothing else you do in your job matters after that. And making weight is the first part.
I always arrive on time, but wearing clothes, that's something I need to take from that, Jimmy, and make sure I implement it in the future. No more naked broadcasting for me.
We know you're naked from the waist down right now.
Yeah,
it's okay,
fine.
dude.
Sometimes I like to wear a thong just to spice things up a little.
Bro.
Jed,
I like the hoodie up top, thong on the bottom.
That's right. I like to sort of space it out eventually. Jed, Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lima is one of the worst fights of the year. Matthew says, how has strawweight sunk so low? These women are so far removed from the Joanna Whaleys of this world. What do you feel? What are your feelings about strawweight right now?
I had a revelation watching this fight yesterday, and it just stuck. And it never struck me. And I talked about it during our watch party. I was like, I didn't realize that strawweight was bad, but strawweight is bad. Like in general, women's MMA is in a pretty bad place, but like strawweight for so many years was the best division. Bantamweight was the marquee division, but strawweight was the best division when it was Rose and Joanna and Weili and that, peak Andrade and Gadelia. Like that was strawweight was banging. And then you look at it, and frankly, it's a lot of those same people, just 10 years older, still there. And it's just like, oh, the weight class is bad because Tatiana Suarez is the same fighter she's been for as long as you've known her name. She has not added a single wrinkle to her game, and that's still working for her, but it's only working because the weight class is bad. And Zhang Weili is maybe the greatest female fighter of all time. I think she's the greatest strawweight of all time, and in that conversation for female GOAT. But like, that's just one person. And it starts to like, I spent some time reconsidering. I was like, I know she's great, but is she less great than I thought? Because his weight class is just bad. There's been no new blood that's come through. Like there's nothing rejuvenating it in the same way that's happening at bantamweight. But bantamweight is all like, everybody who's there is like 40. At least in strawweight, they're like mid to late 30s. But it's just flyweight is the only women's division that's got any sort of traction right now. And I don't know how you solve it, but hopefully getting a new champion in there, like opening the division up, maybe some things can happen. But yeah, the weight class is in really, really poor shape right now. And I did not realize that until last night.
Before we wrap up, Gable Steveson was able to have his big MMA debut at LFA. For those that missed it, here's some of the action from it. He was able to pick up a dominant win. This is a big name in the heavyweight division. Obviously, there's not that many heavyweights out there right now for the UFC to really pick up in order to sort of market. Of course, Gable is an interesting guy, though, right? He tried out in the NFL, didn't quite work out. The WWE didn't quite work out. And then he pulled out on Craig Jones last minute and almost had CGI 2 canceled because of an apparent turf toe. This is not a guy that maybe has the best reputation wherever he goes. There's like a real pattern here, but nevertheless, he is now in MMA. Jimmy, how much hope do you have for him? Do you think this could be the next UFC star? And also a bit of a strange journey for him through all these different combat sports worlds. Doesn't seem to really be matching up for various reasons.
All right. Well, one of the issues, he might have the Bo Nickel problem, which is Bo Nickel didn't start in this till he's in his late 20s. And that is real late in modern MMA. The problem we have now, not problem, but the way it is right now in modern MMA is if you have a full college career and a full international career, that takes you to at least your mid-20s, right? You win an Olympic gold medal, you make a world team. You're not 21 anymore. You're not, I just graduated from college. I was an All-American a couple times. I'm 21. I want to go into MMA. You're 25. There are years that have gone by. You put a lot of mileage on it. It's hard to pick up, as Bo Nickel figured out, the skill set necessary in modern MMA. You got to start, God, really, much earlier now than you used to. Not Mark Coleman coming in and Randy Couture's 33 and wins a UFC tournament. It doesn't work that way anymore. He's starting behind the 8 ball and doesn't have a lot of time. He's in a really weak heavyweight division in the UFC. He has a skill set where any other weight class, he'd have trouble. Heavyweight may just be big, strong, physical wrestler might be good enough. So it's certainly intriguing. But once again, in lower weight classes, the idea that you start late and you have one skill set and you got to build up in time, a la Ben Askren, a la, any of the great wrestlers that came in late that had an international career, it's hard to pick up the rest of those skills. Now, Gable Steveson may be in a division where he can do that, much like DC did, started comparatively late. So I'm intrigued, but we'll see.
Jed, what do you do with him next? Are we still going to do fights in LFA? Do we sign him up straight away to the UFC? How do we maximize his Gable Steveson experience?
I don't know if this is disagreeing with Jimmy, but unless Gable cannot take a punch, which we didn't get to see, like if he's just can't take a punch, then he won't. If he has any level of durability, he's fighting for the heavyweight title. And honestly, the punch might not even be disqualifying. He's just better Brock Lesnar. Like that's him. He is a better wrestler than Brock was. He's the same level of athlete. Not as good of a like pro wrestling star as Brock. It doesn't bring that same aura, but he does bring a gold medal. Pretty freaking sick. But like in the way Ilia Topuria is shamelessly copying Conor McGregor's whole life, Gable is, I think, inadvertently copying Brock Lesnar of like, I will be a great wrestler and then I'll go try and play in the NFL. And then
same college, by the way.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll do that and I'll go to pro wrestling and okay, now I'll go be a fighter because I'll probably be really good at this because heavyweight sucks. And so the only difference is he's not going to fight. His second fight will not be in the UFC, but I think his third fight will be on Contender Series. And they'll like do the Bo Nickel thing where they'll make him fight a couple of Contender Series bouts and they'll sign him off Contender Series, but not for the 10-10 because Gable would not accept that. Because if I'm Dana White, like I would sign him right now. I would have signed him without the LFA fight. Like I would have been like, all right, well, we gave CM Punk a fucking shot. I'll give an Olympic gold medalist to crack because I'm confident that man could walk in and I'm like, who is the worst heavyweight on roster right now? I'm trying to think of like who would just be a real bozo that for him to fight. Do we have any heavyweight fights this past week? No.
Kelvin Gastelum?
That would be deeply funny, but no.
That would be hilarious.
That would honestly be incredible marketing, but they wouldn't do that. But like, I mean, he might have a chance against like actual ranked dudes, but if you just throw him in there against like random fella, he'll be fine. And so like, I don't think they should do that. I think that the best way to develop him would be have him fight every other month on LFA for a year and just learn how to fist fight. But I don't think they're going to. I think that Dana will sign him very quickly and he will go to Contender Series and fight a couple of times there and then make his way to the UFC by next year.
It's going to be interesting to see if this is a bit more successful for Gable than the other career paths that he's attempted. Let's see what happens. He's got John Jones in his corner, so maybe he's got some coaching and some insight that he had in these other previous things that he pursued. But there it is, guys. That is the show for today. Jimmy Smith, Jed Meshew. Jimmy, what's coming up this week? It's a bit of a quiet time in combat sports. What are you doing this weekend? Where can we follow? You got your own YouTube channel as well.
I do. Also, ProBox TV is where I'm breaking down all the boxing news this week, and there's a lot of it. That's where I worked 8.5 hours on Fight Night Saturday. So same deal, ProBox TV.
So you only worked half the event? You didn't work the whole event, just half?
It was
come on, Jimmy.
Insane.
It was so goddamn long.
Oh,
it was so goddamn long.
Oof. That's what I'm doing. Check me out there.
Jed MMA Fighting, what's cooking?
It's a great website. I don't know. Stuff's happening. I don't know. I have no idea what the fuck's happening this week because
nothing happening this weekend. And we got Perth, which I am going to be there for.
Oh, see, that's fun. And then Perth, and then we're some decent events coming up. I don't know. We'll do something this week. Tune in.
Love it.
We'll have fun.
Love it. I love it. Love the promotion. That's what Dana really needs in the Canelo Crawford thing. Just tune in. Something will happen.
Just watch. You're gonna have a good time. Just watch.
Max Kellerman's gonna give me a nice compliment. Just watch. There it is, guys. We are out. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for joining us on Submission Radio Morning After. Rest in peace, Ricky Hatton. We love you, man.
Yeah. R.I.P. Ricky.
R.I.P.